Hi everybody, I wanted to do a quick video sharing some of my favorite geek memories I've had over the years attending comic conventions, book signings, films, and everything else that shares my passion with all of you. One of my favorite memories was that I got to meet Al Hirshfeld, the Lineman. Some of you may know him more along for the witty art that you would have seen in the New Yorker magazine. A few years ago, when I say a few, I mean a long time ago, it was in 1996. I was living in Washington, D.C. Yes, 1996, oh my God. I was living in Washington, D.C., and I used to attend and volunteer for the Washington, D.C. Film Festival every year. And I learned that Al Hirshfeld would be premiering the documentary, The Lion King, the Al Hirshfeld story. It was one of the hot tickets because he pretty much was a chill sort of guy, and I'd never seen him before in my life. I didn't live in New York, I live in DC, and I'm from the Midwest originally. And so I'd seen his art for years looking at the New Yorker, but never had opportunity to attend a book signing or anything like that. And so when they had the documentary announcement, I tried to get tickets, and it was a hot ticket to get, but luckily I finally got one. Now, I may have had old New York magazines, but I didn't have one of his books. And so one of the fun things that I did, like many others, when they announced it and I finally got my ticket, I called all over, searched the internet for one of his new novels. Well, one of his art books hadn't been in, he hadn't printed one in years. They only had old copies. And once people knew he was coming and was doing the documentary, a Q&A, and then he was doing a book signing, his books went fast off the table like pancakes at an all-you-can-eat restaurant. I remember I finally found one at a bookstore that sold used books. They only had one book left. And I begged them to take my credit card over the phone and process it, and they said no. I said, oh, please, please, please hold it for me, and I will pick it up. It will take me about an hour to get there since it was not near where I live. And they said that they would hold it till the end of the day. So I hopped on the bus, I walked, I made my way down to the bookstore, and I got this book. It is an introduction. It is Al Hirshfeld Art and Recollections from the 8 decades that he had worked drawing over the years. Now, I went and saw the screening, and it was really interesting. I know that he had started including Nina's in his drawings over the years. I didn't really know the story behind it. At first, I thought it was the name of his wife, but it turned out it was the name of his daughter. When you watch the documentary, you saw that Mr. Hirshfeld and his wife were so in love and besotted with one another that at times their love was almost like a invisible line that their daughter didn't always feel connected. And so to make sure she knew that he thought of her and he loved her, he started drawing Nina as part of his signature. And you may have seen that he would include a number. Somebody's be 1, 15, 8, or 7. Well, what that meant was if you look through his line drawings, you would see Nina's name 8 times or 7 times or 1 time, depending on what the drawing number had on it. So I went and watched the documentary, which I thought was heartfelt and fascinating. The director was Susan Worms Dreyfus, and it was written by her as well. And it was a great remembrance of some of the artists who he had drawn, talking about working with him, knowing him, and collecting his art, which I could never afford because it's quite expensive, even back when he was still alive. If you're lucky enough to be in Los Angeles or New York City, I know that the Paley Center has a collection of some of his prints. And if you ever get a chance, you have to go see them. They're quite fascinating to see because he would do it with one line drawing all throughout the artwork. So it wasn't like line. It was like he would think it out and then he would like sort of do this line. And so I saw the documentary, and afterwards they had a Q&A. So they said, you know, who has a question? Well, everybody's hand in the audience went up, including mine. And every time they picked someone, they'd ask the question that I was going to ask. How did you start being an artist? What made you do lines? who were you influenced by an artist, et cetera, et cetera. But I kept wanting to ask Mr. Hirshfeld a question. So I kept lifting my hand, and I'd think of a new question every time. I finally thought to myself the question that I was going to ask him, and they finally selected me. And my question was, Mr. Hirshfeld, what technology change over the course of your life was the biggest change and really made a big change for you living? Because he had mentioned in the documentary how he remembered his dad saying Model Ts were never going to last. And so everybody in the audience was like whispering and saying what they thought, you know, computers, cell phones, airplanes, cars, pretty much anything you can imagine. Mr. Hirshfeld thought and thought, and then he looks at me and he says, the microwave. So of course I went, oh, the microwave? And he says, yes, because back in the day, you would have to put your food on a tin foil, wrap it up, put it in the oven, and it would take about an hour, half hour to heat up. Well, once they invented microwaves, you put your food in that you wanted to heat up, and it would be all heated up in like 3 minutes. He said it's like the best thing ever, and he loved it. And everyone laughed, but of course, being me, I thought, nah, I'm gonna go with computers or the internet and the cell phone. To me, they're all one kit and caboodle part of each other. So I was totally excited and happy that he answered my question, and it like really made my day since I was a big fan of Mr. Hirshfeld's. So once they were finished with the Q&A, they told everyone to go line up to get autographs signed. And so I rushed as fast as my fat little legs could carry me, and I got in line. And this lady was behind me, and she wasn't super friendly, but she wasn't unfriendly. But I'm one of those people that always smile and talk to people. And the person that was in front of me said, oh, hey, you asked that question. We sort of chatted about the question and how shocked we were that he chose a microwave. She didn't say anything. She didn't want to be friendly. So, you know, that's fine. I let it go. And so as I waited, I got closer and closer to Mr. Hirshfeld. He smiled, made eye contact with me because he recognized me in the audience asking the question. And we're slowly going, you know, I'm smiling because I was super excited. Then the PR person says, I'm really sorry, Mr. Hirshfeld has been signing for a long time, and this will be the last person. He won't be able to sign for any more autographs. So of course we were all very disappointed, and we're like, oh. And I was literally the person that they pointed. They said, this is going to be the last person. And then I was like, oh, well, he's going to sign my book. I'm super excited about that. And so when they got done with the person in front of me, the lady that was behind me shoved past me and put her book down in front of Mr. Hirshfeld and said, oh, I'm so excited to have you sign my book. I'm really a big fan of yours. And he looks at her, he didn't say anything for a moment, and then he smiled and he said, I'm going to sign that young lady because she was the last person in line. And the lady looks at me, and then she looks at him. She's like, but I want my book signed. And he said, I'm not going to sign your book. I'm going to sign the last person. And that was the last person, which was me. And so she refused to move. And so finally the PR person had to come and kind of like push her aside. And then I thanked Mr. Hirshfeld for selecting me to be the last person for signing my book. We laughed over the question that I asked about what was the biggest technology. And I said, I can't believe it was microwaves. I would think it would be a cell phone or a computer or anything. And he said, I don't really use things like that. He was like, I still have a regular old-fashioned plug-in wall phone. He didn't really use cell phones that much. He wasn't a Luddite, but he also didn't feel it necessary to use a lot of technology because he lived in New York. So he didn't need to have a car. He took the subway and he walked. But the art style that he used, he didn't use computer or technology. He literally used a pen. So technology didn't really affect his life or change it the way it has for so many of us over the decades. But this is like one of my favorite memories, that he saw me and that he answered my question and that he signed my book. And I even still, sadly, my ticket that I got was on will call, so I didn't get like a hard ticket, even though I asked them to give me a hard ticket and they refused. So I still have the receipt that I got. And then I have my book from Mr. Hirshfeld. And then I have the autograph, which is right here, Mr. Hirshfeld. I even kept this because this is like one of the few things that I have. I'm not a big tchotchke person, that for me, the things that I keep are really important to me and have an emotional connection. So I'm happy to be sharing this story with all of you. Tune in and subscribe to my channel, Cherry Los Angeles, on YouTube. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, because I'll let people know when I upload another geek memory. But this is my very first one. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Please leave a comment about one of your favorite geek memories. I hope all of you are doing well. I hope you're staying safe at home and sheltering. Thank you for all of the people who are working and putting themselves up on the front line for all of us. And I have my hopes, my prayers, and my thoughts for everyone around the world. We will be stronger together. Bye.